Welcome back to Unplugged. I've been very fortunate to grow up a Showtime Laker fan and fast forward and get a chance to meet a lot of my heroes. But also able to sit down with a handful of that team, from Magic to B. Scott to Worthy, a little bit ahead of that, Kobe, Shaq, Jeannie Buss herself. But this guy has been behind the scenes for all of it, and just one of the best humans I've ever had a chance to meet and be around. And I'm really excited today to welcome the former head trainer of the Los Angeles Lakers for 32 years. You got 8 rings, G?
Yeah.
God damn. Welcome to the show, Gary Vitti.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for the kind words.
Yeah, long time coming. You just gave us a wild SIM card story. I'm glad that's behind you. But how's life? You're a grandpa now. I saw you send me a picture. You rescued a dog that needed some loving. How's life for a retired vet?
Never better, actually. I mean, unfortunately, the world's not good.
Yeah, world's a little crazy.
I'd be lying to you if I told you that didn't bother me. But my life is good, especially because for the most part, we have the health of all of our loved ones. Mm-hmm. And the bottom line is if you have that, being in healthcare my whole life and seeing people lose their health and all the stuff that they thought was important, they realized wasn't. Mm-hmm. And so fortunately, I learned through watching them that right now I have it all.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Wife as well?
Yeah,
Martha,
she's good.
I DM'd you. She responded. I was like, Martha, how you been? She's like, here's his number. Everything good?
Yeah, you know what? She does all the Instagram stuff. So
okay.
You need to keep me
in the loop.
Yeah, because if she's mad at me and making me look bad, I probably need to know, because I have no idea what she's putting up.
That's funny. 81, Utah Jazz. What was your first experience like with them?
I guess that says it, right?
Brace yourself.
Frank Layden was there, a great guy. I came in. Tom Nasulke was the coach. Gene Little's assistant. But the guy that I really connected with was Bill Burka. Okay. He was on that bench. And that's how I ended up with the Lakers, because when they fired Paul Westhead and then they hired Pat to become the head coach, he was looking for an assistant, and he called Bill. And so Bill left the Jazz, but him and I had already developed a relationship. Oh. And then a few years later, when they were looking for somebody,
I came and got you out of Utah.
I was at Portland by then.
Oh, okay.
So I left Utah, became the head guy up at Portland. You got to kind of understand that in those days, and in your time, we didn't have practice sites yet. Mm-mm. Okay. So, the Lakers would practice at Inglewood High, Pauley Pavilion, Loyola Marymount. We were vagabonds when I came in the league. Well, so was everybody else in the league, right? And the Portland Trailblazers practiced at University of Portland. And they had a good gym. It was like built in the 30s, but the gym floor was on the second floor.
Mm-hmm. It was spring.
Mm-hmm. Where a lot of the places were wood on cement. Mm-hmm. And so the AD was looking for a new athletic trainer, so they talked to Ron Culp, who was the head guy up there, and he said, well, you got to talk to this guy that was working on his PhD at Utah, but now he's in Portland, talk to him. And so Jerry West called me, and next thing,
history.
Yeah. But it was an experience. How can I put this? Good people, bad team, made me basically not want to be in the NBA.
Interesting.
And I was when I was working with the Jazz, I was actually a football trainer, Division I college football trainer. My first basketball experience was the NBA with the Jazz. And Utah was good in basketball. We had Raines and Chambers and Pace Mannion and those guys, but I didn't work basketball. It was a one-man job, right? I was a football guy. But the Jazz wanted a part-time assistant, so they got me. And it just wasn't something I was interested in. I want to finish my PhD and, be a college professor. I saw myself more in a classroom and in the training room than on an airplane, with an 82, game schedule plus preseason and postseason. But then when the Lakers called me, they just lost to Boston for the 8th time. It's the Lakers. It's not the Jazz. You know what I mean? It's different. It's a different animal.
A little bit.
What I mean? And so I said, well, I should at least talk to him. You know what I mean? Still not sold. Believe it or not. I mean, I know it probably sounds like BS to people, but they sent me a first class plane ticket. I had never been in first class before. Okay? I land at LAX. Jerry West picks me up at the airport in a navy blue Mercedes with tan interior. Okay. I'd never been in a Mercedes before, let alone Jerry West is driving it, And then they bring me to the Fabulous Forum, is what it was called in those days, in 1984. And the building is electric because USA Basketball was playing Spain for the gold medal in the 84 Olympics.
Oh, interesting.
It's the day that I'm in there interviewing with Jerry West and Pat Riley, first class ticket, Mercedes with Jerry West driving it, gold medal.
So they rolled the red carpet out for you.
I'm like on the magic carpet ride of hoops. And I all of a sudden I was, really interested. And Pat and I had a really great conversation about a lot of things. He was very, very progressive, considering what things were like back in 84. And I really kind of started wanting the job, but I did say to him, I'm not sure that this is right for me. I really want to be in the performance laboratory, in the training room, in the classroom. And he said to me, I counted these words up later, you could do exactly what you want to do, but now you can do it with the greatest athletes in the world. That was a good line.
Good selling point.
Yeah. And so I kind of left there, I left there like, this could be really good. But all of a sudden they go, well, you can just walk. Remember the seedy hotel? Were you around long enough to see? There was a seedy hotel across the street called the Airport Park Hotel. It was a dump, right? He said, well, you just walk across the street and there's a shuttle take you back to the airport. Hey, where's the navy blue Mercedes with tan interior and Jerry West driving it? So I kind of assumed that I guess they didn't want me. I didn't know. But then a couple of days later, they called me, and 32 years later, I was still on the bench.
So you came to LA in 84 with a head full of hair?
Yeah.
And you left in 16 with none?
None.
Let's talk about that ride.
Yeah. Well, it was an awesome ride. And the last 20 years with Kobe, and that was our line that I told him. I said, I watched you grow. He was 17.
He was a baby. Right.
Tell people, if I wanted to give him Advil, I had to call his mother. Okay. He was a minor.
Right.
I said, I watched you grow up and you watched me grow old.
Yeah.
Okay? And then we retired together. And the other guy that retired with us was Byron Scott. Okay? But you got to understand that I came in, went straight to the top. We beat Boston in 85. All the skeletons came out of the closet for the Lakers, finally beat the Celtics on their floor.
Yep.
Okay? They never lost a playoff series on the parquet floor, let alone a finals. And then, Magic converted seropositive for HIV in 91, which was horrible. We had just played the Bulls in 91 in the finals and lost, but it's not like we were out of it, But then once we lost him, we went straight to the bottom. And we can talk about that because for the most part, to get back to the top, you got to go to the bottom. And we can talk about that. The guy that has been able to do it without ever really being, I don't know how else to say it, shitty, okay, is Riley in Miami. Okay, they've never really been shitty.
Mm-mm.
You know, somehow they've always been kind of one or two players away from, you know, some of that is being in Miami. Players want to play there, but he's developed a culture there that you have to give him tremendous credit. But then we come back with Shaq and Kobe, but people have to realize we got them in 96. We didn't win anything until 2000. Okay? We're probably more talented teams until Phil got there. Okay? And we can discuss what I think happened there. And then, you know, Shaq leaves and we go right back to the bottom again. Okay? And then Pal comes and we go back up to the top again. So I come into the top, go to the bottom, go back to the top with Shaq, go back to the bottom. Pal comes in, we go back to the top again. And then I retire in 2016 and we sucked and we were back at the bottom again. Okay. But I think you have to get, for the most part, in sports in general, if you get stuck in the middle, you will always be mediocre. It's the worst place to be in professional sports. You're better off being at the bottom because then you have a chance to get to the top. And if you're at the top, you have great players that you can trade. You have great players that other good players or great players would want to play with, so you can attract free agents. Okay? If you're at the bottom, you're going to get draft choices, which are assets. So you can trade the picks. Okay, you can draft them and then trade them. You can draft them, develop them, keep them, develop them and trade them. You have options. Okay, but if you're in the middle, you're not good enough to really attract free agents. You're not bad enough to draft, so you're stuck there. Okay, and it's really hard to get out of it. Okay, and like I said, the one exception that I see, and it's not surprising if you know the man. I not only know him, I love him, is Pat Riley. And he's developed a culture. Not everybody can play for Pat.
Yep.
Okay. But you could, actually. I believe so because I know you. And your mental and physical toughness, you know. But if you don't have that, and part of that mentality is being able to sacrifice a piece of yourself for the good of the whole, okay, which is really hard for a lot of NBA guys to do because from the time they're 7, they're also the best kid on the team, the best kid in the league, the best kid in the high school, probably the best kid in the conference that the high school's in. Now they go to college, they're the best kid on that team, and they're probably the best kid in the conference that college team is playing in. And now you get to the NBA, guess what?
Everybody.
All those guys were the best. You know, and now when I broke in, there was 23 teams with 12 guys on a team, whatever the math is, it's around 275, something like that, not quite. Now you got 15 players on a team and you have 30 teams. It's 450 players, but still, that's a lot more, okay? But still, if you're the best guy in the next league down, let's say the G League, you know, or you're a European player, you're probably not good enough to play in the league, or for whatever reason, you're not playing in the league, okay? So that's how competitive it is. Yeah. 450 sounds like a lot, but it's not when you think about, you know, the billions of people that are in the world and the millions that are.
And if you think there's only been, less than 5,000 to ever play in the NBA up to this point. Yeah. Which is crazy. I want to backpedal a little bit. With that Showtime team, your arrival, your first year, you guys get a championship, a lot of different personalities. Obviously, we hear stories about Kareem and Magic not necessarily hitting it off the rip. Pat Riley is a very strong personality, innovative, looking towards the future. What are those locker rooms like? What's that team like? Because we got to see Showtime and it was a fucking show. But, you see something like Winning Time and you were someone who was there and had to walk off the set for your reasons, and we'll get into that. Like, what was it like behind the curtain? Because we didn't live in a social media era where there's no real, you can't hide nothing no more. But back then, everything was kind of behind the curtain. You had to be there to understand.
Luckily, it was behind.
Right, with that team.
I wonder what it had. Like, we talk about it all the time. Like, can you imagine if they had cameras? Okay. Let's be honest here, though. So winning time starts in 79, 80. I was with the Jazz.
Okay.
So I wasn't there. I didn't come until 84. So that team, the 79-80 team is, Magic's a rookie. Norm is on that team. Okay. And they beat Philly, to win. So I really can't comment on what happened there. Now, starting the 83-84 season, they trade Norm to get Byron Scott. Okay. And I can kind of tell you what I've heard. Norm was like sort of iconic, okay, when he was with the Lakers. Rightfully so. He's a great player, very competitive. But from my perspective, once again, 6'9" point guard, Magic Johnson is going to be at his best with the ball in his hands. Okay. Now, in those days, you had small point guards, like Norm. Okay? And he's got the ball in his hands. And there's only one ball. Okay? So, Jerry West came to that conclusion that, what I need is more than a point guard that can shoot it a little bit like Norm. I need a pure shooter, which is going to be Byron Scott, and a guy that's coachable, that will play defense, because, and I'm saying this because I don't think Byron Scott has gotten credit for this. Okay? And we're going to talk about Michael Cooper, too, in the same sentence, sort of. So you got a 6'9" point guard trying to guard Isaiah Thomas. That's not going to work, right? But also a 6'4" guard, that's a 2 guard, what we considered a big guard in those days. That's really not the right guy to put on Isaiah either. But you don't have anybody else, so you got to do that. Okay? And Byron's never really gotten the credit, because I think he was looked at mostly as an offensive player, and that he was not the first or second option in the offense, but because the way the game was played, low post offense, throw the ball into Kareem and out,
kick it out,
get a double. They got to leave somebody, and Byron's going to be out there.
Knocking it down.
He's a shooter, and so you could say that he lived off of these guys, but the fact was that he put the ball in the basket. You know what I mean? You got to give him credit for that. What he doesn't get credit for is having to play defense on these other guys out of position. Okay. The other guy that having this great point guard, 6'9", that also created problems offensively when he came out of the game, because now you got an offense that's predicated on a 6'9" point guard. So now you bring Michael Cooper, who only gets credit for playing defense, but now he's playing the point. Okay, doesn't get any credit for that, does he? He's not 6'9". He's tall. He had length, so he did a pretty good job. But I don't think he's ever gotten credit for that. And so Norm leaves, Byron comes in, and they beat him up. Okay, the Lakers themselves beat up this kid. Okay, and I get there the next year, and they had lost to Boston in the finals. And so, the Lakers became, instead of Magic, they called them Tragic, and instead of the Lakers, they called them the Fakers. And so I come in there, and Byron is just now, after one season, but they lost, hasn't been completely accepted by those other guys. Okay? But he did that year, and I was kind of in the same boat. Okay, because I was the rookie athletic trainer, and they're going to see, well, what's he got to offer? Byron and I became really close because nobody else would talk to us.
Interesting.
But eventually, Byron became one of the guys. And they adopted him, and once again, this is Pat Riley and Jerry West, but Pat creating this sense of family where everyone was included. Now, when I say everyone, he had a saying, Pat, 12 plus 2 plus 1. 12 players, 2 coaches, and the athletic trainer, me. There was actually 3 coaches. Okay? That 80-45 season was Dave Wall. Okay? But the second assistant, the third coach, was pretty much an advanced scout. He was always on the road, coming back with scouting reports. There's nothing like that today, right? I don't know how many coaches they have. I
Too many.
See like this
8,
yeah,
9.
but it was 12 plus 2 plus 1. It was 15 guys that Pat called the inner sanctum. It's the 5 guys on the floor and the 10 on the bench. We are the ones that are have an effect on the game, even me to some remote extent. Not scoring a point, a rebound, or an assist, okay? But I had my duties, okay, during the actual game. He even came up with another saying he called a peripheral opponent. If you weren't one of those 15 people, you were a peripheral opponent, okay? That included your family. Yeah, how about that? But if I say it to you this way, you show up at the arena and you go get a ticket envelope to put your wife's name on it, to put the tickets in there, okay, to send them up to will call. You were distracted from the game.
Interesting.
Okay? She became a peripheral opponent. She distracted you from the game.
Wow.
Yeah, I get it. It's kind of out there. But when you really think about it,
it's true.
Okay? You were not totally 100%
focused on
you
the
might
game.
have been 99.9, but Pat wanted 100.
Yeah.
Okay? And you understood how he could demand that because he was 100. Okay? You know, he was the kind of guy that, for me, if Pat said, we're going to go up to the top of the form and jump off today,
you're going with him.
I would have gone with him. You know, obviously exaggeration, but you get the point. Okay? So I think I've described what it was like. Okay. And then I'll also say this. The goal was not to win a championship. The goal was to beat Boston to win the championship. Right. It was that focused.
Wow.
We knew they were going to be there. We needed to get there. Okay? And we did. And we go into game 1 of the 85 finals. And we get beat by 34 points. Okay? On Memorial Day, known to this day as Memorial Day Massacre. Okay? And that's when, and Kareem looked like an old man. He did not play well. Okay? Parrish, and I mean, they had a big front line.
Yeah.
Okay? Mikhail Parrish and Bird. And they were really good, and tough, mean too. Okay. We go in the locker room, and here's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar that I've made an argument as not only the greatest basketball player that's ever played the game. He may be the greatest athlete that's ever walked. If you really look his entire body of work, like from high school, Power Memorial on up, okay, and we could talk about the record, the scoring record, okay. If you really look at the whole thing, not even I love Michael, okay, and respect him tremendously. But even Michael hasn't done what Kareem has done. Okay? And Michael did it all.
Yep.
And LeBron, has broken his record, which we should talk about. And I admire LeBron. Okay? But we get beat by 34, and we go in the locker room, and Kareem looks at everybody and takes 100% blame. And then he guaranteed that we were going to win the championship. Okay? And it taught me something, okay, that the real true test, and I get a little choked up about stuff like this, the real true test of one's character is when things are going bad, not when everything's going your way.
Right.
And things were bad. Okay. I mean, you get beat by Boston in the finals by 34 points. And Kareem taught me that when things go bad, you know what? You go in the bathroom, you look in the mirror, and you take responsibility for your part of it. And then part of that process is you kind of beat yourself up over it. But the sooner you get through that part, the better. Okay, because it's part of the process, but it's not very constructive because you got to get to the next thing, which is the most important thing. Learn from the mistake. Kobe was like this. Okay, I tell everybody it wasn't only competitive. If he lost, he used the loss to come back better.
It was a lesson.
Okay, and you don't make the same mistake again. You know, and I write in the book, if I can remember how I said this, but there's the fool who never learns from their mistakes. They make the same mistakes over and over again. Okay? And then there's the smart person that learns from the mistake and never makes the same mistake twice. And then there's the wise person that only learns from their own mistakes, but learns from the mistakes of others. Okay? Always be smart, try to be wise, never be the fool. Okay? And I don't know if you know this, but Kareem, we beat Boston in 6 games, and Kareem was the MVP of the playoffs after being the worst player on the floor in game 1.
Yeah, the winning time situation. We spoke about that briefly. What was your what was your title initially with that, and then you ended up leaving just because you couldn't morally?
Yeah, so a little bit of the backstory. So Rick Fox, who I love, is a great guy. And no blame there as far as I'm concerned. But Rick calls me up and says, hey, the HBO, I think it was HBO, people want to talk to you. They're doing a documentary on Showtime. And I told them that, you know, they should talk to you. And he goes, he says, you might be able to get like a consulting gig or something out of it. You interested? I go, yeah, I'm interested, you know. And I was writing the book at the time. So I went down and was somewhere in Santa Monica, and I spent several hours with him and pretty much kind of told him, listen, you can talk to me, or I'm almost done with the book. You just read the book. It's all in there, what I know, you know. And so we get to the time when they're ready to air this thing, or shoot it, not air it, but shoot it. And they call me and they say, listen, we're starting in 79 and you're not with the team yet. You didn't come till 84, but we want you in it. And so you're going to be, and you probably know what this is, but I never heard this before. You know what an Easter egg is in that business? Okay. So you know what an Easter egg is. You know, look, your kids go search for the Easter egg. In that business, apparently you take somebody like me, who's kind of sort of recognizable, not famous, but some people know who I am, and you stick them in the crowd. And like, if you really know, you're watching and you go, is that Gary Vitti? So you're an Easter egg, right? And so we're going to make you an Easter egg. And they had explained to me what that was. And so the way they did that was they made me a scout. Okay. And I had the polyester clothes on. They put a wig on me. You know, I look like an asshole, right? Okay. and so, you know, I'm in the war room, and you know, there's several scenes that I'm in, and they use different directors, okay, for different episodes. My director was, geez, I just had it. Now I lost it. It'll come back to me. John C. Reilly is Dr. Buss. I got to tell you, he looked exactly like Dr. Buss.
I thought he did a great job.
Exactly. He walked like him. He talked like him. He smoked like him. I thought I was talking to Dr. Buss. I mean, he was absolutely amazing. Jason Clarke was Jerry West. I mean, these guys were great, and everybody was just magnificent. I mean, from the time you got on the lot, hair, makeup, the security, everybody just extremely professional and kind, nice, really nice people, you know? And they all read the book. Every single person read the book. You would have thought that I was kind of the celeb because I was the one there that was actually there, you know? with the team. And so they start shooting this thing, and Jerry's yelling and screaming and cursing at people. And I'm like, that's not the Jerry West I know. And to be honest, it was the same thing with Dr. Bus. Okay, he never cursed people out, you know, and he jumps up on Mary Lou Liebig's desk. I mean, first off, there was a scene where Dr. Bus is walking in and he starts screaming at everybody, out of your offices, out of your offices. I want to talk to everybody. First off, that space didn't exist at the forum, okay? Didn't exist, you know, so this scene never actually happened. And he jumps up on Mary Lou Liebig's desk. The man would have needed a stepladder, okay, to get up on the desk. So, and he's yelling at everybody, I bought this team to win a fucking championship. You don't want to win, get the fuck out. Never, ever, okay, ever. I mean, you know, the epitome of walk softly and carry a big stick kind of guy, okay? And Jerry would curse, but not at people. He wasn't like that, you know? And so I go home the first day and I call Rick. Foxy, hey, listen, man, okay, everybody was magnificent. They were very nice to me. I mean, John C. Reilly, these guys were really nice to me. I said, and they're fantastic actors. They look like the people, you know, but it's all wrong. None of this, it's out of character. They're mischaracterized. He goes, okay, listen, I'll talk to him. He calls me back. He goes, listen, I talked to him. They want you to know that they understand what you're saying. They want you to know that this is not a documentary. It's a docu-series.
Yeah.
Okay? And there's going to be like this
dramatization.
Disclaimer. Okay. So I say to him, okay, I get all that. I said, but you know what? I'm Italian. Okay. And I watched The Godfather. Okay. And some of those characters were like loosely based on like real mob guys and stuff. And I said, you know, Johnny Fontaine was supposed to be Sinatra, but they didn't call him Sinatra in the show. They called him Johnny Fontaine. I mean, you're actually calling him Jerry West.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
You know, and if you don't know him, you think this is true. And he says, there's nothing I can do about it. So I said, okay. So I signed a contract, okay? And I had a SAG card. You know, so they're paying me scale, and I got to go back. I signed the contract, and the contract was minimum 2 days of shooting. Third day was optional, their option. So I go back, and there's more of the same thing the second day, and now I'm like, I go home, and I don't know if they're going to exercise the option for the third day, and I'm really nervous about it because I don't want to be a part of it. Because of my love and respect for Jerry West. I don't want Jerry to think that I'm a part of this thing, you know? And so they call me and they say, listen, we want to exercise the option for the third day. We want you. And we want to add 2 more days. And I said, and she was very, very nice, the casting director. I don't recall her name. Okay. I said, listen, I definitely not going to do 2 more. Okay. And to be honest with you, I don't want to do the third. Obviously, I'll do it. I signed a contract, but I don't want to. I'm really, really uncomfortable doing this. Okay. She goes, okay, I'll get right back to you. And they were very, very nice. This was not an acrimonious thing between me and them. They were very understanding. And so she calls me back and she says, I get it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the third day. You're off the hook. And don't worry about 4 and 5. And that was it. And it wasn't until a little bit later where it kind of got out that I didn't go back. And, you know, there was a few interviews. And I said, yeah, you know, that wasn't him. You know, they mischaracterized the man. And they kind of stuck to their guns, though. You know, because Jerry said, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to take it to the Supreme Court. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember, yeah.
Okay. And it was like, yeah, you can't sue you, HBO, man. They'll bury you in paperwork, you know what I mean? Okay, I'm not a lawyer, but I get it, right? And so eventually that just kind of faded away. And Jerry passes away some years later, and then after he did, they interviewed Jeff Pearlman, and then he said after Jerry passed that those things never happened. We made it all up. Okay, I guess better late than never, but
I get your point. I mean, to know these people and to see the way they're portrayed is a big deal.
Yeah,
especially the kind of relationships you had with them.
I mean, they made him look like an alcoholic, violent
lunatic
man. Yeah, throwing a trophy through the window. First of all, there were no windows. It didn't exist. There was no trophy. Okay, and I'll tell you what. Going back to the Showtime thing and kind of like the tenor.
Mm-hmm.
So we win the West to go play Boston in the finals. And there's like a little ceremony at half court, and they give you a trophy. It's like a silver ball, And Kareem accepts the trophy. We all go in the locker room, and there wasn't much of a celebration. Okay,
a lot of work had to be done still.
Okay, Kareem walks in with the trophy. Okay, and there, everybody's waiting for him. Okay, because. And he walks over to the laundry hamper and he throws it in like it's a piece of garbage, And I learned, thinking about it, like, wow, man, he just threw a trophy and we won in the trash, But I get it, I got it, like not having ever been around a championship mentality, and I figured it out that sports is actually designed for failure. It's not designed for success. Only one team wins the last game. Everybody else goes home a loser.
Yep.
And no matter how hard you want to try to change that and give young kids a trophy for showing up and breathing.
Bullshit.
It's when you start going down that road, and there's legacy.
Yeah, different story.
You got to win. I do want to say something because we touched on it.
Okay,
about Kareem.
Yep.
And my opinion, and I write about it in the book, a whole chapter about him being the GOAT.
Yeah.
Not just in basketball.
Yeah, tell me about that, because he definitely doesn't get the just due now, particularly.
Okay, I mean, let's face it. These kids never even saw Magic play. Okay,
true.
They never saw Michael play.
Yeah.
Some of them maybe not even, when you start thinking about it, Kobe.
Yeah.
It's been 10 years since he's retired, right? He was 37 when he retired. Kareem, scoring champ for how many years? And then LeBron breaks the record. So, boom, my phone starts ringing off the hook. What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. And I want to start out by saying tremendous respect for LeBron. Let's face it, he's a beast. So number one, you have to give him credit for playing long enough to break the record.
Absolutely.
Which is really, really difficult to do in and of itself. Just having a career that long, and he's still playing. Okay? But here comes the but. Okay, and not taking anything away from him. I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm giving to Kareem. There's a big difference. Kareem, to my knowledge, made 1 3-pointer his entire career. So you start doing the math.
Yeah.
Okay. So for every 2 threes, okay, that LeBron scored, Kareem had to score 3 times in the paint with some monsters.
Big boys.
In an extremely physical game at that time.
1 for 18.
Okay. I was right. 1, right? Okay. But here's probably the most important thing. Kareem played 4 years of college basketball. At the beginning of his career.
Right.
Okay. Not when he was 40 years old, where people saw him. Okay. So you'd have to add 4 years of NBA
high level scoring.
Okay. Well, he was like, he could run the floor like a deer. And he was playing against Wilt, Bill Russell. I mean, these guys, Bob Lanier.
Guys that wanted to beat him up.
Wes Unseld.
Big, strong guys.
Big, strong. Artis Gilmore. I mean, these guys weren't a joke,
Yeah.
So, like, you start doing the math, 4 years of scoring, okay, you got to add that on, and maybe he would still break it, but it would probably take him another 4 years when he broke it.
And similar to Kobe, where Kobe didn't get his first couple of years, he was kind of handcuffed to the bench with Del Harris.
Yes.
And you could take that in consideration once he hits the scene, what kind of scoring ability he had. But for those 2.5 seasons, he was in a straitjacket.
I can make the argument that when he retired, we're not talking about a big man, okay, front court player, I can make an argument that he was the best player in the league with his back to the basket.
As a guard.
Yes.
That's tough. Most points versus most rings, most TDs versus most yards, most chips versus most W's. When it comes to sports, we can argue all day about what makes you the greatest. But when it comes to ice cold shots, there's no question. An ice cold shot of Jägermeister always wins. So next time you step up to the bar or open the freezer, don't forget to go to the greatest ice cold shot of all time. Drink it cold or don't drink it at all. Jägermeister. Damn, that's cold. Drink responsibly. Jägermeister liqueur. 35% alcohol by volume. Imported by Mast Jägermeister, U.S., White Plains, New York.
Matt, it's been a long day at work, bro. It's time to get baked.
I couldn't agree more.
No. I mean toasted.
Is that right? Tell him about it.
Gooey, melty, crispy. It's gonna be so good.
Wait a minute. What are we actually talking about right now?
I'm talking about Jimmy John's, man. Toasted sandwiches are a fan favorite at Jimmy John's now. You have to try one of their sandwiches designed for toasting, like the chicken bacon ranch, roast beef and cheddar, ultimate Italian, or the new ham and 3 cheese melt. It features a double portion of smoked ham topped with gooey cheddar, Parmesan, and provolone.
I think I'm gonna add bacon to mine.
You know what? You can add bacon, and you know what that's gonna be on? All on a toasted French bread.
Oh, I can't wait. And don't forget, you can get your Jimmy John's favorite toasted too. That includes, but is not limited to, the number 9 Italian nightclub or the number 11 country club. Discover more possibilities with Jimmy John's toasted sandwiches.
Order online at jimmyjohns.com, on the Jimmy John's app, or just stop by your local Jimmy John's.
Jimmy John's, satisfy your toast buds. Quick break in the action. Counting down the days until payday, Instacash from Moneyline can help you access up to $500 of your hard-earned pay early. There's no interest, no credit check, and no monthly fees. So you can manage those in-between expenses with less stress. Download the Moneyline app and link your qualifying bank account to see what you qualify for. Moneyline, make money easy. Instacash is subject to terms and eligibility requirements. Expedited delivery requires a turbo fee. See Moneyline.com. This segment is brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I was stumbling around the DraftKings app the other day and wanted to place some bets. And although things are still conspiring as we speak, we're in full swing, I wanted to go to who is going to represent each conference in the finals. So out of the East, I'm going to go with Boston. Nate, what are they at?
As it stands today, they're plus 125, but odds are subject to change. Just got to mention that. So get your action in.
So they're the number one pick coming out of the East then on
East
odds.
favorite right now, odds. Yes, sir.
I love them. Obviously, Jason Tatum returning. He's at almost a 20, 21, 22 a game, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. I think Jaylen Brown will be an all NBAer this year. I'm huge on Peyton Pritchard and just the way Joe Mazzulla gets the rest of his guys to go. Obviously, Derek White is a big key to that, but I just really like what they have going on in Boston, how they were able to hold the ship down until Tatum got back. I see Boston coming out of the Eastern Conference. And in the West, I know the top 3 are probably OKC, the Spurs, and Denver, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw a curveball at you guys. I'm going to go with San Antonio. I think that's a safer. You get more for your return with that bet. Nate, what are they at?
Good juice, Matt. It's plus 340, so that's good juice.
I like juice. Defensive player of the year, I think Wemby will be the next defensive player in the year and MVP, just like Giannis was in I think the 19-20 season. I like Castle. I like their coach. I like Just their young squad. De'Aaron Fox is getting to spread his wings finally. So I'm going to take San Antonio to represent out of the Western Conference. And they beat OKC, 4 out of 5 times this year, right?
Yes, sir.
There's my pick. Boston out of the East and San Antonio out of the West. I got a chance to sit down with my brother Gary Vitti, longtime Laker trainer. The interview was so good that we had to chop it up and make it into 2 parts. Hope you enjoy this second side. Welcome back, Unplugged Part 2. Gee, man, I appreciate you coming back and finishing up where we left off. Obviously, we talked about your early time. We talked about probably the most comprehensive breakdown of what's going on with the Achilles for you basketball fans out there. We talked about Jerry West. We talked about the early Showtime Lakers. And before we leave that era and jump into the Shaq and Kobe era, November 7th, 1991. My world changed. I think a lot of people's world changed. I remember being 11 years old and crying when I heard that my favorite player in the world, Magic Johnson, had to retire. I didn't know what HIV was. I was just sad that my favorite player was leaving. What was the energy and the amount of shock like when you first heard? Because I'm sure you probably heard early, and then once it went to the public.
Oh boy. Okay. I haven't talked about this in a while. And I'm a little bit better now, but I mean, let's face it, he's going to outlive us all. Okay, but
Superman.
But we thought it was a death sentence.
We didn't know any better.
To give you a little backstory about when I learned of what was going on. So we played in the McDonald Cup in Paris that year, and so we come back from Paris and we have 2 games left in the preseason. Now, we had played the Bulls in the finals and lost. And in those days, when you lost a game, it hurt. When you lost a playoff game, it hurt more. And if you lost in the finals, it was like tragedy. Okay. Which is, I've learned a lot, because there are people that really have tragedies, and that's really not tragic in the scope of the universe, right? But at that time, that was the mentality, tragedy. So we're coming off of tragedy with the Bulls, which means we have to win it in 92. So we're coming into training camp with that mindset, okay? And we know the Bulls are going to be there, okay? And so the attitude is not just to win a championship, but to beat the Bulls to win the championship, because you have to avenge the loss. That's the kind of mindset there was in the game in those days. And so we come back and we have 2 more preseason games to play, one in Salt Lake against the Jazz and one in Vancouver against, I believe it was Seattle. And so this is before the Grizzlies. They were trying to put a team in there. Okay. And Seattle was the closest city, right? So Magic calls me like a day or 2 before we're ready to leave, because that's 2 games in one trip. Okay. First Salt Lake, right? So he calls me. He says, "Listen, man, I'm still jet lagged and I'm kind of tired, and I really don't want to go on this trip. So I think, if you guys want me ready for opening day, let me stay home." So I said, "Okay, let me see what I could do." I called Jerry West and plead Magic's case. And Jerry says, "Listen, he doesn't have to go to Utah, but he's got to go to Vancouver because that game hasn't been sold out." And you got to understand, in those days, there were promoters. So we didn't promote our own games. You cut a deal with a promoter and you had to work with him. You didn't want the guy to lose money, because you needed him the next season to promote your games.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So the game wasn't sold out, and if they hear Magic's not going to play,
they're not going to sell out.
They're not going to sell out. So, Jerry's infinite wisdom was like, tell him we'll fly him up game day. So I call him back and said, "Listen, I got you out of the first game, but you got to go to the second game. So we'll fly you up to Vancouver on the morning of the game." He goes, "Well, if I got to go to play in one, I might as well play in both." "That's on you, brother. I mean, I did the best I could." So he comes with us. We get on the plane. We fly. to Utah. And this is before cell phones, right? So we get off the plane and we're getting on the bus and I have these messages to call the office right away. And so crazy thing in those days, like the athletic trainer used to carry around like a roll of quarters.
Oh, to make calls?
To make,
Okay.
can't even find a payphone today, right? You know? So I call the office and Jerry says, I need you to send Magic home immediately. And I go, well, what's going on? He goes, well, I can't tell you about that, but you'll find out soon enough. And I just need you to send them home. Okay. It was kind of cryptic. I mean, it was extremely cryptic. And Jerry was, him and I had a really good relationship. Right. So I was like, the furthest thing from my mind was, what ended up happening. So I get, we go to the hotel and I talk to Irv and I go, listen, I got to put you back on a plane. He goes, what's going on? I said, I don't know. I thought you knew. He goes, I don't know either. I got a message. I need to go home. So we send him home. He literally goes back to the airport, catches a flight back. He doesn't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And so I'm racking my brain and I'm saying to myself, Magic's gone through all the physical exam stuff and we got all the results back. All the blood work has been back. We played 6 preseason games. If he had something, it would have shown up, so I have no clue what's going on. And then we go and play the game. And it's really bugging me. And you remember Tony Smith? Mm-hmm. Yeah, kid went to Marquette, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's one of these. In those days, as you know, it was really hard to find pure points. So we were infamous for like drafting 2 guards and then trying to make them into point guards, And so we get Tony and he is working his tail off trying to be a point guard. Okay. And he comes in he's great shape and he's working really hard and he blows his ankle out in this preseason game. Utah? And it's a bad ankle sprain. He's going to be out for a while. Okay. And so we're on the bench and right before this happens, I get this like epiphany of he must be HIV positive. And I figure this out because 1, the lifestyle, 2, when you sign a guy to a huge contract like that, you take a life insurance policy out on him. Suppose something happens to him. Okay. Suppose he gets hit by a bus. Okay. That covers the policy, right? That covers the contract. The policy covers the contract. We don't test for HIV. If you ask for that test, we'll do it, but we couldn't do it even if we wanted to because it would be a violation of your civil liberties. But the insurance company requires it. And so it hit me. He must be HIV positive. And so now Tony's I get choked up with this. Tony's in the training room. He's laying on the plinth, treatment table, right? And he's extremely upset. And he basically starts not crying, like sobbing, but you could tell he's kind of tearing up. And I look at him and it occurs to me and I said to him, I go, are you crying because you're in pain or you're crying because you're going to be out for a while and you work so hard? And he went like that, that's it. And I'm saying to myself, and I said to him, you're going to get better. You're going to get better. Okay. But there's people in the world that are not. Okay. Because in my mind, I've already told myself, Magic Johnson's going to die. Okay. And I was very close to the man. Okay. Play the game. We fly to Vancouver. And did you ever go up there? Did you play up there?
I missed those years.
So we used to stay at this place called the Pan Pacific, and it was beautiful. It overlooked the sound and this park and seaplanes would land, and it was all glass. So you enjoyed really being there and just looking out the window, because it's a beautiful part of the world, Vancouver, right? And so I get a phone call from Dr. Melman, who was our team doc at the time, And I answered the phone. He goes, Gary, it's Mickey. I go, he's HIV positive, isn't he? Because I remember this conversation like it was. He goes, yeah, I knew you'd figure it out. And I said, well, he wanted you to know, but you can't tell anybody. Okay? And so I believe there was like 7 people that knew. And so those people would be Dr. Buss, our owner, Jerry West, our GM, okay? Lon Rosen knew, Magic knew, Cookie knew, and Dr. Millman knew, okay? That's 6. Somebody else in there knew. But Mike Dunleavy, to my knowledge, to this day, did not know. He was our head coach at the time. I said Cookie, right? His wife knew. But there was somebody else, okay? And so now so I asked Mickey, I go, well, for starters, what's the possibility of a false positive? Okay? He said, very little. He goes, but obviously we're retesting. So number 1, we had to wait for the retest. And then number 2, you got to figure out what are you going to do with this information, okay? Because you could keep it to yourself, HIPAA violations, nobody that knew, you'd be liable if you repeated it, right? Not that you would anyway. And it took about a week to figure it out. And not to bring up sort of all this dirty laundry again, but there was just so many people out there that he could have passed it to, possibly, but didn't know how to get a hold of them. Not like he had a black book with all these numbers in it, right?
Time. Yep.
And so the only way to warn these people, hey, if you were with Magic Johnson, you needed to get tested, was to make it public. Okay. And then, are you going to play with it? Okay. Because there was no rules, we knew very little about it. Some people knew a lot more. Dr. Hattar, knew more, but I mean, we didn't, So about a week or 2, we go through this. It's a couple of weeks. And then Magic finally makes a decision that he's going to go public. And so Lon calls me, Lon Rosen, and he says, here's what we're going to do. Okay. You guys I think it was a Thursday. Was it Thursday or Friday? He goes, you guys are flying out, going on a road trip to open the season up on the road. And, when you get to the airport, it was, charter plane, get the conference room, get everybody in the conference room. Magic's going to come and speak to the team. And then he's going to go back to the forum and have a press conference. You guys are going to get on a plane and fly away. Okay. And it was Magic's plan so that his teammates didn't have to face the media. Okay. He was going to face the media alone. Okay. And then eventually they would have to, but by that time it would have been announced. So this is like the day or 2 before this is going to happen. We're now at practice at Loyola Marymount. Okay. And all of a sudden, I get a message from I think it was Brian Quinn, who was the AD at the time. Jerry West needs you to call the office immediately. So I call the office. I'm like, what now? Okay. And he says, get everybody out of the gym immediately. Okay. Tell them I don't care what they have for the rest of the day. We're at practice. Okay. Stop practice, get everybody out of the gym, tell them to report to the forum at 2:00. I don't care what else they have planned in their lives. Okay. They need to come to the forum, and don't tell anybody what's going on.
Oh, that's crazy.
Okay. There's been a leak. Okay. So I go out, I get Mike Dunley. I go, Mike, I need everybody at center court. And so then I say, listen, I can't tell you what's going on, but I need everybody to leave this building right away. Get in your cars. Okay. Don't talk to anybody. Don't talk to the media. Okay. And I need everybody to go come to the forum at 2:00. You'll find everything out at that point. And like guys are grumbling, I got stuff to do. And I said, listen, I know you do, but what you're going to hear today,
Take your time.
I mean, it's hard to believe like this happened so long ago, and I still feel this way because it takes you back to the moment. You know, I said, what you hear today is going to change your life forever. But once again, you got to understand, we thought he was.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is somebody that's pretty important to all of us, right? Okay. So what happens next is it gets leaked and it's on the radio. Okay. And so some guys are getting in their car and they're putting music on, you know, like CDs in those days, right? And some guys are listening to the news. And so everybody shows up at the forum. They get them in the locker room. We're in there. And now what happens is some guys know and some guys don't know. And I realize that because the guys that know are coming up to me and saying, yeah. And so now I don't think it's my responsibility to tell everybody, but it's an odd situation. Okay. So I get everybody in there and I said, listen, Magic's going to come down here in a few minutes and explain everything to everyone. But he's going to retire. Okay. And he'll come down and tell you why. Right. So he comes down and the man just looked impeccable. He had this, beautiful suit on, starched white collar. And he gets up in front of everybody and tells them that he has to retire because he's HIV positive. And then, and only a way that a Magic Johnson that I know can do, he went to like each guy, okay, and hugged them and then whispered something in their ear, okay, something personal, okay, to each person. And so the last two people in this sort of rotation are Bill Burka, okay, our assistant coach, and then me last. Now Bert is a really stoic man, okay, tough guy. Okay? He's still alive. He's 98 years old. Okay? And he hugs Bill and says whatever he says to him, and Bill's knees just buckle. Okay. And Magic's like holding him up. And so then that makes me get kind of emotional. Now, what happened, one thing I negated to say, that day, the day that we got back, the next day, and we had practice in the morning, Magic said he wanted to meet me before practice, and before everyone else got to practice. So him and I met privately in the locker room. Okay. He knew I knew, but he wanted to meet me. And so we talked a little bit and hugged it out.
What's his energy like now? And is he?
I'm going to tell you. Okay. So now he gets to me, and we've already had our moment. Okay. At Loyola, right? Privately. And so trying to make it easy on kind of both of us, he gives me a hug, and I said, it's okay, man. Okay. We've already had our moment. And then he said to me, he goes, I know, but it doesn't make it any easier. Okay. I'm emotional. He's not. He's stoic. Okay. And then he went upstairs. We all did. Okay. And he faced the world, is what you saw on TV. And without a tear in his eye, initially, he told the world privately with me. I asked him, how you doing? Because I'm not doing well. Obviously, I'm still not doing well. Okay. I haven't been like this in a while. Okay. I don't know. Maybe it's you that brings it out of me. But when I wrote this whole story in the book, but I said, how you okay, man? I said, because I'm not doing very well. And he literally said to me, he goes, when God gave me this disease, he gave it to the right person.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to do something really good with it. Okay. And of course, as cynical as I am, okay, I'm like, dude's in denial, man. He's going to die, you know, and it's going to be an ugly death, right? Because that wasn't you know, you used to fall asleep and not wake up. I mean, you suffered. Okay? And he did in his life exactly what he said he was going to do. Look at him. Like I said, he's going to outlive us all. And I'm so grateful for that. And he's done great things. Okay? He's done great things for the HIV community. Okay? For the underserved community. You know, he took that same mentality that he used in sports, you know, to do other things in his life. And I mean, you gotta hand it to him, man. I mean, he's, you know,
he's magic.
He's yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. Like I said, he's special.
Thank you for sharing that. I can only imagine. Like I said,
no, you can't. Actually, you can't imagine. Okay,
no,
I mean,
I cannot imagine.
Okay, to be like, you're in it. You know what I mean? It's like, I still to this day, I'm like I don't think I'm I don't think I'm special at all. But I had a very special position. You know, why me?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the only athletic trainer in the world. You know, why me? I hope I was worthy of the position. And it's the same thing with that I just wasn't part of it. I was at the center of it, you know? And then he decides to come back, right? Comes out of retirement, because there was sort of a process there, if you remember. First he did the All-Star game, and then he did the Olympics.
So yeah, we wanted to, I mean, Karl Malone made comments and said he doesn't want to share the court. MJ hugged him after the All-Star game. That was the Orlando in Orlando, right, where he won MVP?
Mm-hmm.
And MJ hugged him. Right. So obviously and I mean, obviously to go back to that time, like you said, like you thought, like the rest of us thought, I was little, but like when you hear HIV, you think the next step is they're not going to be with us anymore.
That's
you
correct.
know what I mean? So to have the mindset he had and the foresight to do what he did. So then you think back on what was said and how people moved, and it's just like, it's kind of, but we don't know enough to kind of really safely. So it's just like you kind of saw some real sides of some people during that time.
Yeah, and Mark Price was the other dude, okay, that didn't want to play with him, and then there was a guy, there's a player from Australia that, because they were going to play Magic was going to play in the Olympics, right, the Dream Team, and he said, I'd rather win a silver medal than play with him. I was like, silver medal? You're not going to medal at all, okay? Okay, you know,
yeah,
and so. One of the things I think because people heard those guys, they heard Karl, they heard, you know,
Mark Price,
and then I kind of understand what they didn't hear was Magic's teammates coming to me and saying, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
Okay, because they're going to play a game here or there with him. I got to practice with this dude every day. In those days, we practiced hard, right? And I'm going, yeah, don't worry. Now at that point, we were all much more educated, and I got to hand it to David Stern. David Stern used his position and Magic's situation to educate everyone in the league, from owners right down to the team attendants of the ball boys. Everybody knew more about HIV thanks to David Stern, and that included me. And because, once again, that I was at the center of it, we didn't have a bloodborne pathogen protocol, okay? Guys, guys were bleeding on the floor.
Every day getting scratched or elbowed or something. Yeah. So what is, are there scares in practice? Are there scares in games when he does come back? And what is that?
Well, this is why he retired the second time. So we're playing a preseason game in Chapel Hill.
What year is this? Do you recall?
This is probably 93. 3, I guess. Okay. I feel like my life has been one big long year from birth till 2026. Is just every day is just like another day. You know what I mean? Like it's hard for me to. Yeah. I know what years we won. I know what years my kids were born. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I know how old I am. But like it all sort of runs together, right? So we're in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I'm pretty sure it was Sean Rooks was on our team, and I think it was him. Magic were playing in the game, preseason game, and we were there, I think, because we were playing. I think we were playing Cleveland, and I think it was Matt Doherty was from Carolina, and he was a center for the Cavs, and we had James Worthy. And it was at the Dean Dome, right? And so that's what they did preseason games in those days. Go to a city that doesn't have an NBA team. You get star players from both teams that went to the same school, and then everybody wants to come and see them play. So there's sort of some sort of marketing, you know, that went into it. And Magic gets his fingernail scratched, and one of my players is like, "Magic, yeah, okay." It's like I'm looking, I don't see anything. And get a dead ball, and I say to Ed Rush, I go, "Ed, one of my guys says that Magic has a scratch. Which means you get a bloodborne pathogen timeout. So it's not charged to either team." Gotcha. And so he looks, and so Magic comes to the sideline, and it's a non-bloody wound. But you could see his skin is open. It's a scratch, okay? Now, if he's bleeding and there's blood, then you put gloves on and the whole bit. But there isn't any blood. So I take out a 6-inch cotton tip applicator. I spray some tough skin on it, which is like sticky stuff. You dry. You know, what you do in that case is you hand the player a gauze pad, say, "Here, put this on." He already has HIV. He can't give it more to himself, right? So he's handling, you know, this, drying his skin, making sure that the wound doesn't start bleeding while I'm getting stuff ready. And then you kind of paint the area around the wound, and then you slap a bandage on it. And the tough skin is so that the bandage will stick because he's going to, you know, and then you can put like a sweatband over it or whatever. Well, you look up and you see everybody staring at us, cameras on us, HIV positive guy. I got the gloves in my pocket. I'm telling everybody you can't get it that way. Now you're going to put gloves on? Like, how do you face those people? You're sending a mixed message to the world. You know, I'm telling you can't get it that way. And then I didn't put the gloves on, you know. It's not like I was sticking my finger in an open wound, you know what I mean? So Magic saw the looks on everybody's faces, and I believe we never had this conversation, but I believe that he saw what I saw, and he felt like he was taken away from the game, and then he retired again. Now, if he didn't retire, maybe it would have blown over. But the fact that he did, the next day after he retired, he's on the front page of every newspaper in the world. You know, Magic Johnson, HIV player, retires second time from basketball. But he's not on there alone. I'm on there with him.
Oh, during the time? Without
the gloves. Who's the dude from Rhode Island? You. Okay?
You.
Okay? So there's, as I understand this, there is a doctor from Rhode Island, obviously a Celtics fan. Okay? And I believe he was having some issues with OSHA. Okay. OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So they come into a doctor's office, make sure you are doing everything, right. And so I think he was having troubles with OSHA. They were fining him or whatever for not doing what he's supposed to do. And so he files a formal complaint against me, okay, saying, you're you're in my office looking at me where you have a guy that's HIV positive, okay, and a guy taking care of him without gloves, knowing he's HIV positive. So then OSHA investigates me. Well, when you open the door to OSHA, you open the door to everything, which means now they come into the forum, are all the signs in the right place? Are you teaching the people that work there how to bend their knees when they lift? Everything gets wide open. Okay. And so that's a big thing on our owner, Dr. Buss. Okay. Because now they're threatening to fine him for certain things. And through the education that we all had, because there wasn't a bloodborne pathogen protocol prior to Magic converting seropositive for HIV, we had to put one in. Well, at that point, nobody knew more about it than me. So the MBA asked me to write the bloodborne pathogen protocol. So I broke my own protocol. Okay. But I did it for a reason. And David Stern was really angry with me and called Jerry West, who was equally angry with me. And then I took the attitude that, listen, you do what you got to do. I said, but I'm telling you right now, circumstances as they were, I don't regret what I did, and I would do it again. Okay. And Dr. Buss stuck up for me. Okay. Now, it probably took a year or two, okay, and eventually OSHA came around and said, given the circumstances, you handle things well. But that was page 8. You know what I mean? So nobody really ever, so I didn't get fined, I didn't lose my job, but it maybe that's part of also like how I get upset about the whole story. It was a couple of years of my life that were bad, like bad, like I thought I was going to lose this guy that I loved, on my watch, and then on top of it, they're coming after me, but it all ended up great. I spent 32 years, with a great owner, great general manager, Pat Riley, great coach, great players. I mean, as great as my career was, there's a few things, Yeah,
I mean, I think we all have those dips. Thank you for sharing. Again, that's obviously a significant, but also brings back a lot of memories and pain. So thank you for sharing that.
I've gathered myself now.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Magic's out. Shaq and Kobe in. There's some downtimes in between there, but Magic was the end of an incredible era that we all loved from afar. And again, you were right in the center of that. Shaq is signed as a free agent. Kobe's traded for Vlade on draft day. What do we remember about the Shaq signing and the Kobe trade?
Well, the Shaq signing was like Lord of the Rings. I mean, it was literally that attitude, like Lord of the Rings. Okay. Because, we were, known for being a low post team, with Kareem, you know what I mean? And now we had, what could have been maybe the most dominant center in the history of the game. Brad Doherty. Okay. Not Brad Doherty. Brad Doherty, the big guy that played at Chicago and Sacramento, Brad Miller. Brad Miller.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We talked about this when Shaq almost took his head off.
He almost did, right? I don't know why I was at the scores table, maybe checking, like sometimes you might miss a foul or something, you take some of those stats. So I'm at the scores table. Here goes Brad. And I never have Brad. So I don't know him. I mean, I know who he is. And I apparently he knows who I am. And so he's checking in the game while I'm there. Okay. And he looks down at me and he goes, gee, I look up. Yeah, Brad. And he's 7 feet tall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brad. He goes, tell me the truth. He's 400 pounds in me.
Big motherfucker, man.
And he's serious, right?
That ass serious.
And so I'm trying not to laugh, there's people there, but I'm kind of cracking up. I go, no, Brad, he's 358. Okay.
360.
He goes, no, I'm telling you, reweigh him. He goes, he's 400 pounds. He goes, I'm using all of my strength and I cannot move him. And Brad was a big strong dude. He wasn't like a skinny 7 foot. He was a big strong dude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that was the deal. Okay. You get Shaq on your roster. I say this all the time, and I've said this to him, and I fought with him as much as I love him. We fought all the time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If Shaq wanted to win every game, you would win every game. It was pretty much that simple. If he wanted every single rebound, he would have gotten every single rebound. Like, long shots, long rebounds. So there might have been some that chromed off the rim, you know what I mean? But even then, if he wanted that ball, okay.
And you saw, not to cut you off, young shit. So Shaq was what, 23, 24, 25 in that age?
Something like that. It was 96, so whatever his age was. He not only was huge, he moved like a cat.
Uh-huh.
He was cat-like.
What kind of jokester and prankster was he early on? Because I got a chance to play with him and he was over the top. But what was he like early on at that age? I can only imagine.
I love the man, but I got to tell you, you were looking over your shoulder
constantly,
all the time. You could not have. My advice was, don't eat anything that's not coming out of a hermetically sealed canister. Okay, because you
never know.
You never know. You
never know with Shaq.
You never know.
Shit, he'll piss, he'll do anything. It's crazy.
So I've told this story. This is pretty nasty. Okay. This, I think, is the worst thing that he did to me. Okay.
To you, damn.
Yeah. So I knew enough to, if I had to go to the bathroom, I would go in the coach's locker room. Okay. For obvious reasons.
Safety
right?
first.
Yeah. But I thought he was on the court. Okay. I thought, this is during practice. I thought he was on the court. I saw him go out there. There's a complete lapse of judgment. Okay. I have no one to blame but myself because I knew better. Okay. I went in to urinate, to take a leak, right? So I'm at the urinal, and you would think you would have seen his foot, because this is a size 22, like this at a glance, but I didn't really look to see if he was in the stall. And so I'm in there taking a leak, and all of a sudden I hear my name. And I turn around, and he's 7 feet tall, right? So he's towering over he's standing in the stall, okay, with toilet paper that he just wiped his butt with. Okay? And so my reaction is, you disgusting kid. And I hear him, look at it. I said, I'm turning my head like that. I'm not looking at it. I said, look at it. I'm not looking at it. I'm not going to look at it.
Get the fuck out of here.
I said, look at it. I wouldn't look at it. All of a sudden, I see something out of the corner of my eye. He threw it at me. Landed on the floor.
Yeah, that's fucking foul. Yo, and Shaq stories are insane.
Nasty. I mean, that's nasty. Okay. And then the other, he went to like the police academy.
Uh-huh.
All right. So he's going to the police academy, and like everybody on the team knows it, and he's, you gotta love him too. Some of the stuff is funny. Some of the stuff. So he's coming in with like these magazines with like holsters, you know what I mean? And like all this police shit, you know what I mean? Like a belt with where the guns are like behind. He goes, here, during practice, he goes, you know what I mean? Look through this and pick out some cool shit for me. You know what I mean?
He's telling you to?
Yeah, it's telling me to do it, right? Like bandoleros, over bullets and stuff. You know what I mean? So,
Did you
I
do
did
it?
tell him. I said, came in with his nipples pierced.
Yeah.
Wanted to show me, right?
Hey.
And then he could do that. You know what I mean?
Bri Temple
I said, you know what, man? You got too much money and too much time on your hands, and that's a really bad combination, right? So he's going to the police academy, and now he comes in and if he's got an audience, that's when you know you're in trouble, right? So he's got people in the training room, and he takes one look at me, okay, and he grabs me. And if Shaq grabs you, there's nothing you can do.
Come on, man.
There's nothing you can do about it, right?
Come on, man.
He grabs me up against the wall, motherfucker. Spread him. Okay? like I'm a perp, right? And so he's frisking me. You know what I mean? In front of everybody, like I'm a criminal.
Oh shit.
Okay. The first time it was funny, it was cute, right? But now this starts to become, the second and third time. And by now, the second or third time, I see him coming. And this one morning, I was pretty busy. I said, not today. Okay. You had your laughs.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny. Good. Not today. I'm busy. What? I said, I'm not kidding around. I said, leave me alone. I'm busy. Okay.
Leave me alone.
What? Okay. Next thing I know, boom, up against the wall, motherfucker. Right? So
does he have any guns at this point?
He reaches in front of me, right? The only thing you can do, I bit him. I bit him on the hand, right? Okay. I didn't break skin or anything, but I bit him on the hand. Let me go, otherwise I'm going to start clamping down, right? He looks at everybody in the room. He goes, he's resisting arrest. He winds up to hit me. Okay. I see it coming, and I kind of turn. And first off, it wasn't a full Shaq hit because
he could have hurt you.
Yeah. All right. Well, he did.
Okay.
But not even with a full hit. Okay. I thought he broke my pelvis. Okay. He dropped me. Okay. And then he laughed. Okay. I had to get 2 injections. Ask him. He'll tell you the truth. I had to get 2 injections in my back. I limped around for a couple of days, and then we had a game, and Dr. Lombardo, our team doc, came in. He goes, what happened to you? I told him. I said, he hit me.
He hit me.
So I had 2 cortisone shots in my back and able to.
That's serious.
I could walk.
2 of them?
2 of them. Yeah. So he did he did his doc. I told that story. This isn't the first time I've told it. He laughs at it. He thinks it's funny.
No question.
But he to this day, he still laughs at it. He goes, but the one thing I'll say about Vitti, he goes, he didn't rat me out. I didn't go up to Jerry West and say, you got to do something about this guy.
That's insane.
Okay.
So you get Shaq, and we'll talk about the on-court greatness, but Kobe, when did you start seeing something in him? Obviously, Jerry was very high on him. Vlade was a big part of this team, and obviously getting Kobe made Vlade expendable. You get a young teenage kid, and then the second part of that question is, Kobe was at UCLA a lot early on, and there was, you hear rumors or it could be truths that there just kind of he wasn't vibing with the team. So can you also speak to that, if that's true or not?
Yeah. All right, let me start this. Before he became the Black Mamba, because there's 2 completely different people here, okay? There's this guy that was on his birth certificate, it says Kobe Bryant. And then there's this other guy that's the Black Mamba. And it's really hard, if you knew the 2 people, it's really hard to know that they come out of the same body, okay? Because they're diametrically opposite, okay? Kobe Bryant is the sweetest, nicest guy you've ever met, okay? If you saw him with his daughters, my daughters, probably the prime example of the beauty that's inside of him is with a Make-A-Wish kid, okay? that would make you cry. Okay. Because everybody, even I had a Make-A-Wish kid. Okay. Somebody that wanted to be an athletic trainer, you know. And that being with a Make-A-Wish kid is a difficult thing. Okay. Because they're ill. Right.
Yeah.
And so as much as you feel like you need to do this, there's a part of you that is like, you know what I mean? You want to kind of get out of there, but you don't let them feel that. Kobe, he would have spent hours with these kids. I mean, he was so good with them. Okay? And you could see the love that came out of his heart and their heart. And I used to say to him, I said, you know, the rest of the world doesn't know this about you.
Oh, I said the same thing to him about something else.
Okay, yeah. I said, you know, I realized something about you. I said, you got a heart of gold. It's just surrounded by shit. Okay? And I used to make him laugh. So now he comes to the team. He's 17 years old.
It's crazy.
Okay. Vlade, let's talk about Vlade. Vlade was a legit 7-foot center. Okay. He wasn't a 6'11" guy that we're trying to make into
he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Vlade is a 7 foot. He got hands like this, great hands. I mean, if Vlade touched the ball, it was his. Okay. And he was a great player. Okay. To give up a 7-footer, it's hard to come by these guys, right? For a 17-year-old kid, I didn't get that. I mean, Jerry West is the brilliant guy, but like, are you kidding me? Okay, you just gave away Vlade Divac for this kid. And okay, so then now let's talk about that. If you're me and you're looking at, and probably you before you saw what he became, anybody that's in the game, when you look at him through basketball eyes, there's nothing special about Kobe. Okay. Is he big? Yeah, compared to me, he's big, but by NBA standards, not really. Is he strong? Yes. But by NBA standards, he wasn't like brute strong. Could he run? Was he quick, fast? Yes, he was. But once again, you know, not by NBA standards, not an outlier. Okay. Certainly quick enough and, you know, playing in the league, especially at that position. Could he jump? Yeah, but he didn't have like a 40+ vertical and like Zach LaVine or one of these guys. So what was there about him that he ends up with 5 rings and guys that were more, if you want to use the word talented or gifted or whatever it is, infinitely more, have none. Okay. And so I didn't see it until I saw it. Okay.
You saw it.
You know, and it wasn't there right away. And part of the reason why it wasn't there, and this is not a knock on Dell, I believe, and you'd have to ask Jerry West this in our next lives when we see him again, is did you hire Dell because you wanted Dell? Dell was had a brilliant basketball mind. Brilliant. Okay. And so you take this 17-year-old really brash kid, and now we got to teach him the NBA game. Okay. And so what better guy than Del Harris, who's like Del wrote books. Okay. There's books out there by Del Harris about defensive schemes and offensive stuff. You know what I mean? To teach the kid how to play, you know, and that's how we had problems with Dell and Nick Van Exel, because Dell was trying to coach Nick, you know, and Nick is literally like Dell's coaching from the sideline in the game, and Nick is literally yelling back at Dell, "Don't tell me how to play." And well, that's literally his job, is to tell you how to do that. Okay. But okay. I get it. Right. And so Dell didn't play Kobe a lot, you know, because Kobe was going to play the way Kobe wanted to play, because he modeled his game after Michael, but he wasn't Michael yet. Okay. And
Eddie Jones was there too, right? Not to cut you off. Eddie Jones was on the team still,
Eddie
right?
Jones was our first round draft choice. So he was in that position. Okay. And that's when they made that decision that, okay, Eddie, you're gone because now Kobe is, he's ready. Okay. And you really pissed Kobe off that Eddie was playing because they knew each other from Philly. And if you talk to Kobe said, I've been kicking his ass for years. You know what I mean? In the playground or the gym, high school gym or whatever. Okay. And so, you know, even Michael wasn't Michael when he first came in. So Kobe wasn't Michael. It wasn't even Kobe yet. He wasn't the Black Mamba yet. Okay. But you couldn't tell him that. Okay. And then eventually he got there. Now, part of the problem with that is that Shaq saw that. Okay. Like, okay, you know, Vlade's gone. I'm the guy. So it's, I'm sure all teams do this, but historically the Lakers, the night before training camp, we have a team dinner. And then everybody kind of introduces themselves. Okay. And says like, you know, who they are, what they do. And if you're a player and you're new, you know, especially if you came from college or whatever, you explain that. Everybody pretty much knows, but then they hear you say who you are, right? So Kobe got up there and he goes, you know, Kobe Bryant came from Lower Merion. Hey, and listen, I know I'm young. I know I'm a rookie. And I know I'm going to get hit. I know it's a physical game, but I don't want you guys to worry about me. I don't want you to worry about me. I can take it. I know I can take it. And I mean, I don't know how everybody else felt, but I was like, are you trying to convince us or trying to convince yourself? Because trust me, brother, you have no idea what's coming at you. I mean, you're in with the big guys now, and they're going to start running you into pick. You know what I mean? Hey, send them my way, you know, work back in the day. Right. And so then, you know, they laid a wood on a kid like that. Right. And then Shaq gets up there and all he says is, I'm Shaquille O'Neal and I'm a motherfucking prolific scorer. And then he went and sat down. Okay. So if Kobe gets the ball in his hands, okay, you know, instead of it going into Shaq for either Shaq to score, which, you know, you got to feed the big dog, right? Okay. Or you know, the offense is usually in those days, you don't see anybody in the low post today, but goes in out, right? You put it in, it goes back out. Defense starts moving around, ball moves faster than the people, then the guy gets an open shot. Okay. And, you know, it's kind of, you know, somebody's going to get an open shot. Then Kobe would take it upon himself to score. And I think in Shaq's eyes is you haven't earned the right for that yet. Okay. And then he nicknamed him Showboat. Okay. Now, you have Shaq that is 7 foot, 300 plus pounds. And then you got Kobe, you know, 6'7". Okay. Now I have this theory. You'd be a good guy to bounce it off of that. You take a smaller guy, you put him in the gym all alone. They can be in there for 2 or 3 hours all by themselves. Okay. They become Michael Jordan in their head, you know, work on their game. They could do all sorts of things. You got a big guy, 7 foot, does the Mike and Joe. Left, right, left, right. After 30 minutes, what are they going to do? In those days, big guys weren't shooting threes, right? You know? And so, you know, not to take anything away from Shaq, but by his size alone, he could dominate. Okay. Plus, he had good hands and he did have cat-like reflexes and that kind of thing. And so he didn't have to work as hard to be as dominant. And that was very obvious to everyone, especially Kobe. So I'm working my ass off and you're not. Okay. And we're not winning because they came in 96. We didn't win in 2000. Okay. So Kobe's getting more and more pissed off. I'm getting pissed off too at Shaq, but for different reasons. Okay. One, practice would help him get into better condition. But maybe most importantly, okay, and I literally said this to him. I said, you got to understand that you are, in these words, okay, you are so big, you literally fuck up the game. You take up too much space, okay? Which means the spacing on the floor when you're in the game is different than when you're not in the game. So I need you to get on the practice floor, okay, so that what we practice is the way we'll play, okay? And yeah, you know what I mean? I couldn't, and so we used to fight, okay? And then Kobe got really angry with him. And, Shaq's like, well, looking at Kobe, says, you can't win without me. And Kobe's like, well, you can't win without me. Okay? And then the schism starts. Okay. Now, I've been on the record, and I'll say it here again. It is really easy to blame Shaq and Kobe. Very easy to blame them. What about all the rest of us? We're a team. Team's like a family, right? Sometimes with your family, you get mad at your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister, but you don't stop loving them. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with a team. Right? It's hard, to be loving every day with everybody. Somebody's going to piss you off eventually, right? Mm-hmm. Right? But literally, we stop loving each other. And the more anger that was created, the more divisive it became, and people started choosing sides. Mm-hmm. Players chose sides. Staffs chose sides. Wow. The fans chose sides. Okay? And the whole thing came apart. Okay? And it's really troublesome to me. Sometimes I get choked up about it because it was my family. I mean, I have my family, okay, but this was also my family. And we should have won 10. We literally should have won 10 championships. Okay? And we won 5, we won 3 with the 2 of them, okay? 5 with Phil, okay? And the problem with not winning it is that when you don't, okay, here's one of the things, like when I talk to young people, one of the things I say, as I've gotten older, okay, that I've realized that the 2 most important commodities that we have in the world are water and time. You cannot stay alive without water. As long as you have water, they can keep you alive pretty much. Okay? Time, once it's gone, you cannot get it back. Can't. So you need to be prudent on how you use those 2 things. And once you've lost, the loss is gone. You can't get it back. And there may not be tomorrow. You might not ever get a chance, okay, to be in that position to win again. And that's kind of what happened for a while, okay? And Kobe didn't want to play. He told me, I don't want to play with a dominant big man. I think partly because Michael never played with it. They've some pretty good big men, but not a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, not a Shaq, okay? And then guess what? He realized, I need a big guy. And then Powell comes.
I want to back up a little bit before we get there. Phil comes in 99, and what changes? How does he get these 2 star personalities on the same page, at least if it's only for the games?
Got it. Okay. There is a reason. For starters, Phil comes in with 6 rings. Right. Okay. So he comes in with instant credibility. I mean, it is. These guys come in, you got to earn their respect. Right? They don't walk in and get it. but he had already earned it from everyone. That's part one. Part two is he's got a 5-year, $12 million a year contract. He's got a $60 million contract. Guess what? That's telling all the players
How serious he is. How
yes,
important
that
he
Dr.
is.
Buss is saying, hey, guess what?
That's our guy.
This is our guy.
Yeah.
Okay, because players can get a guy fired,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not going to be quick to fire a $60 million guy that's got 6 rings.
No
okay,
chance.
so he comes in, and that's when the term in those days, if you remember, I don't know where it came from, that Phil was wearing the daddy pants. Okay.
Okay.
So he comes in with the 6 rings. He was Michael's coach. Kobe loved Michael. Okay. And we ran the triangle. And as a result, this team needed structure. And there isn't more structure in any offense than the triangle.
Mm-hmm.
But also with the triangle, and you know more about basketball than I do, and ever will know. There's one thing about the triangle, okay, is that you need a finisher, okay? Because after you've run through 22, 23 seconds of the triangle, okay, and you don't have a shot, the ball's got to go in somebody's hands that can finish.
Mm-hmm.
And Chicago had Michael, and we had Kobe, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and Shaq, okay? And so without that, because other teams have tried to run it, but they didn't have a guy that could finish, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gets lost,
Mm-hmm.
okay, when people talk about the triangle
Mm-hmm.
and this and that. And so between the 5-year contract, the big money, the 6 rings that Phil came in with, okay, and a structural offense, okay, that everybody bought into because everybody then touches the ball,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and so you'd have guys that were playing without the ball, and so you had to have the right guys on your team. There were certain guys that we had on the team that you would not consider great athletes, like being
Mm-hmm.
quick and strong, you know what I mean? But they knew how to play,
Mm-hmm.
and they fit into that triangle. And so sort of everything worked until it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, three-peat, when Kobe and Shaq were on the same page, and you've seen a lot of basketball, how special were they?
Fantastic. The only other team that I enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed watching that was Sacramento.
With Webb and them?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Rick Adelman, nobody ever talks about the guy. I don't know where he is or what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I never had him as a coach, but that was one of the most well-coached teams that I really enjoyed watching those guys play. They could beat you inside. They could beat you outside. They moved the ball. They were unselfish. They had guys that maybe didn't create a shot. Like I used to say, they're shooters and then they're shot makers.
Yeah.
Okay. So you might not have had a shooter, but he was a shot maker. You get the ball to Peja, and you give him 1 or 2 seconds to get a shot
You're
off.
in trouble.
He's going to bury it. And so, I don't, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I want to touch on something real quick that I forgot about because you mentioned this last time. The Sacramento series where Kobe got sick, right? Food poisoning in Sacramento from a burger.
I don't know. I don't remember what he ate.
But back and forth. The refereeing has been called in question. What's your point of view of that? Because if I'm not mistaken, did you guys go on and play New Jersey? I think it was New Jersey that year.
Yeah, I think we swept Jersey, didn't we?
Smacked them.
Yeah.
But that
Byron
Kings,
Scott was the coach of the
King
team.
series was special. Ori hits a big shot.
Yeah.
A lot of different stuff going on. I want to kind of with that series.
Okay. Well, let's go back to Kobe being sick, first of all. Okay. So I don't know if I've ever told this. I might have, but and this is TMI. But that's why it's good for your podcast.
There you go.
So I get the call. I don't remember, maybe 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and I mean, he's doing figure eights around the toilet bowl, right? Okay. And he's going, dude, you give me something. You got to give me something. And in those days, we didn't travel a physician, an internist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If we did travel a doctor with us only in the playoffs, it would have been an orthopod. Okay. And so you're probably better off with me than And so what he really needed was like a shot of compazine or something,
To flush him.
Okay. Well, to stop the abdominal cramping and that kind of stuff, right? Like if you've ever heard the Pink Floyd's are comfortably numb,
Mm-hmm.
everybody thinks it's a song about whoever the guy was, but doing drugs. It wasn't. He had food poisoning, and he had these, and they call the doctor, and he comes and he gives him a shot of compazine, and it slows everything down, and and he kind of falls asleep. But that made him comfortably numb.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's really what Kobe needed. But I didn't have that. But what I did have was a compazine suppository.
Oh shit!
Yeah. So
Fuck.
he's going. I said, "Listen, dude. I could take you to a 24-hour emergency room, So I go in there and he's in his bed and he's like curled up like a shrimp because I said, or we go this route. He goes, what is that? I think he said, looks like a silver bullet. I said, well, kind of, yeah. And so I said, it's a compazine suppository. Suppository. What am I supposed to do with that? I said, you know what you're supposed to do with it. Yeah?
Did you put your gloves on?
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
Did you put your gloves on this time?
I'm not. Couldn't pay me enough. If it came to that, we were going to the emergency room. Okay? So I said, well, I'll come and check up on you in a little while. And he says, if you feel bad enough, you'll do it.
Mm.
Okay?
So you left it on him.
So, yeah. So I left. And then I came back a little while later, and he was asleep. And then
This shit was gone.
yeah.
And then he came out and did his Kobe thing on the court after.
Right. And so he believes to this day that the hotel people poisoned him. Who knows? I don't know if they did or they didn't, but he was sick. He was really sick. And you couldn't keep him down.
No.
So the big question at that point, the big issue is can you stop the cramping, stop the diarrhea, but then the diarrhea causes dehydration, so then you have to rehydrate them. There's no way that you can drink that back in. So it's got to be an IV.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then you got to get them, a couple of bags of ringers. And then what's interesting with that is that if let's say the room temperature is 70 degrees, which is warm, but your body's 98.6. So you put a 70-degree fluid into your body, into your bloodstream.
Shocks you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to warm it up and, you know what I mean? And try to get it in little by little by little over time so that he could play. So you do all these things, and he ended up playing. And then God bless Vlade. So Vlade retires, and they open up a museum. There's a museum for him in Serbia, right?
Mm-mm.
And so he calls me, and he calls Burka, okay? And he says, they're opening a museum for me here, and I want to invite you and Bill Burka. And Martha and I had just gotten back from Italy, and I said, I can't get on a plane and go back there, right? And I said, so Burka went, but we didn't, but I made a video.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, sometimes you just think about Vlade and how much he gave to the Lakers. I mean, even after he left, he was still giving. Like that one time, he just tapped that ball right to Rob.
Oh, man. That was your video too?
That was my video too, right? But the game with the call, the controversial call, in my mind, it's not controversial at all. That was Sacramento's ball.
Mm.
Yeah, we screwed him.
Mm.
Okay. I mean, we didn't. The officials did. But,
Mhm.
okay. But that should have been their ball. And I'm glad it wasn't. I mean,
Right.
you know, fuck them. Okay.
But
Yeah.
So I love the 3 rings. Shaq leaves off to Miami. Kobe understands the importance. I think they understand. Shaq runs right away, but Kobe kind of understands the importance of what Shaq filled. Able to get Powell and build a new team. Able to win 2 more with that. Him and Phil had some ups and downs during that journey. But I want to advance to like, you just mentioned it. You couldn't keep him off the court, but Kobe would dislocate fingers, shoulders, ankles, everything. And G, you would put your hands on him, and Judy would put her hands on him and have him. He did not want to miss any time on the court. Explain his toughness and his mental approach to just wanting to be out there every night.
Yeah. Let's go back to like what I said. There's nothing special about him. So how does he end up with the 5?
Mhm.
Okay. So it's part of it's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. First off, nobody worked harder than Kobe. Okay. But there's a lot of guys that work really hard.
Mhm.
So kind of what the difference is that also nobody worked smarter than Kobe. So everything was done with almost like choreographed, like he had in his mind what needed to be done on that particular day. And he just didn't go through the motions. He did it. And he did it to the best of his ability. And he did it over and over again that day until he felt like I accomplished it. Right? Because a lot of times we go, it doesn't work the first time. You keep chipping away at it, right? Then to get more into what you're talking about is his mental toughness. Okay. He convinced himself. He took the words can't and won't out of his lexicon and he replaced the words with can and will. And he did that by challenging himself. So, little known fact, I've said this on, I think, Byron's podcast and a few times on interviews, and I don't know if you know this. Did you know he got waterboarded?
Mm-mm. I didn't know that. When?
Yeah, he was hanging around with some Navy SEALs, and this is around the time of, the guys that were in Cuba, the Guantanamo, okay? And they were waterboarding guys, and it was inhumane and all that. And so he starts talking to these SEALs, and the SEALs are saying, it's not like you're going to die, you know what I mean? It's torture, yeah, but, nobody died from it. And he goes, okay, well, let's give it a shot. So he let him waterboard him.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, so who does, what the,
Who does that?
And so, he challenged himself to the point where my job more often was trying to hold him back, okay, than pushing him out there. So, hey, listen, this is not in your best interest.
Right.
Our owner, I have a responsibility to you. You're an investment. You're an asset. I know that sounds like shitty, like you have an owner and you're an asset to the owner. I get it. Okay. But let's face it. Okay. And it's a part of my responsibility is to protect that asset. Okay. And that means protecting you from yourself. Okay. and so convincing himself that he could do things. Did I tell you the Saw story? Like this one. So, do you know the movies? Saw? Okay. So I had never heard of it. I didn't know what they were. I don't watch that stuff. We're on the plane. Okay. And it's, during the time where there's DVDs, right? And so he comes, he's sitting in the front, right? Okay. And I'm like a couple seats behind him. And he comes up, he's all excited. He goes, I could do it. Do what? He goes, you'll see. I could do it. I have no idea what he's talking about. He hands me the DVD. He goes away. I pop it in the computer, right? And you know how it works, right? So this particular episode, because there's different ones, right, is the reverse bear trap. You know what it is? So you know what a bear trap is, right?
Are you talking about 1,000 Ways to Die?
No.
Okay.
So the Saw series
Okay.
is about this like
Yeah, no, I get
the
it.
bazillionaire guy.
Yes. Yeah.
And so the bear trap does this.
Snaps on him.
Snaps on him.
Mm-hmm.
But the reverse bear trap is it goes the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were living your life, if you were a healthy individual, but living your life in a way that you didn't deserve to live, this bazillionaire guy who was dying, okay, was going to teach you a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So he would capture you, drug you.
Mm-hmm.
When you woke up in a room with something fucked
They're
up,
gonna
right?
play with you, yeah.
All right. And so this one was the reverse bear trap.
Mm-hmm.
So you got this thing on your head and the claws of the bear trap are like in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it releases, it's going to rip your skull apart, right? And so there's a lock on it so that you can get it off if you have the key to the lock. Well, where's the key? The key has been surgically embedded behind your eyeball. And so you see it on an x-ray, the key. So now you know when you wake up that if you want to get out of this thing, the key's behind your eyeball. The only other thing in the room is a scalpel. So Kobe watching this has already convinced himself that if it was him, he could cut his eyeball out to get the key to take the thing off so that he could live. And I was trying to convince me that he could do it. And I look over, so I watched this, and I now I know exactly what it's talking about. And before I could say anything, he goes, I could do it, and I could do it. And I looked at him. You know what I said?
I believe you.
I believe you.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
are right. He could.
You know what I was talking about was we would always watch Thousands Way to Die before the games in the locker room. Me and Kobe would always watch that shit, and he would always, I could do that. I would have did it. I'm just like, sometimes he would just be quiet and chill, but we would sometimes watch that shit. I remember Thousands Way, if you guys remember the show 1,000 Ways to Die, like we would watch that shit, and he was just like trying to figure out which one he could beat and which one he could.
I'm sure he beat all. I mean, you got a chain around your ankle. You got a hacksaw. You got to cut your foot off. You know what I mean? Like,
and I believe you, bro.
I didn't know you guys were doing that, and that's the only saw I ever. That was enough for me, one and done. But I didn't know you guys were doing that. But
we were watching.
Sounds right.
1,000 Ways to Die all the time.
And the one other, I know you didn't ask this, but the one other characteristic about him, nobody was more competitive than him. But one of the keys was that if he lost, he used that loss to come back bigger, better, and stronger. He watched that loss over and over and over again. And he realized that you learn more from your mistakes than your successes. Because a lot of times winning, we sweep a lot of shit under the carpet when you win.
At least you won. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, he was the other way.
Yeah.
So I'm there. 2-peat. I get there the year we try to 3-peat. I tear my knee that year. That's the year Dallas smacked us and went on to beat Miami. Phil announces he has cancer to the team. It shook everyone up. We transitioned from Phil to Mike Brown, and shit starts getting crazy. We also make a transition from Dr. Buss handing the keys to Jim. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Take us through, because obviously looking back, that was kind of the end of Kobe's championship window. Yeah. And one thing I always respected about him, and what makes me put him up where I put him up, is Kobe could have left and jumped on a team, because you know how much he wanted that 6th ring. He wanted that 6th ring like no other. He could have jumped ship and went and got another ring, but Kobe rode the ship till it sunk. So I want to touch on the transition of kind of Mike Brown coming in, Jim Buss taking in the behind the scenes bullshit that was going on, and then him eventually getting to the point where he tears his Achilles.
Yeah. Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But you got it all.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out the ABCs. So one of and you know this, okay. And I don't know if we talked about this, but one of the only teams that has kind of gotten away with not going to the bottom and still being competitive is Miami. You know, but as a general rule, to get to the top, you got to go all the way down to the bottom. Okay. So with Powell, okay, and this is more with Mike D'Antoni. Powell is one of the most he's a legit 7-foot guy,
Talented
great
shit.
hands,
Mm-hmm.
magnificent basketball IQ. Kind of got this reputation of being soft. I'm telling you, Pau Gasol was not soft because I know what he played with.
Mm-hmm.
He played beat up and sick too. He just wasn't a banger. Marcus' brother was more of a bigger, stronger banger. Okay. But he was more of a finesse player. And he could shoot, either hand score around the basket, extremely talented. And then we pulled him out from where his strength was in the low post out to the pinch post, out to the elbow. And that really bothered him. But he was very professional about it. And then we decided to trade him and Lamar.
Remember that?
Yeah.
It got vetoed.
And then, exactly. But the trade was made. So they knew they were traded.
LCP.
And now we got to, now we got to take them back.
Mm-hmm.
They were both pissed.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar never recovered. That was the beginning of the end. Like he had issues before that, but then he went over the deep end. Okay. Powell was also never the same, but he was more professional about it. Okay. And so we lose those guys. Okay. We go to the bottom. Okay. But what's happening is that we're getting draft choices. Okay. Now, in those days, okay, you could have a two-headed monster, okay, give money to two guys, okay, and then you could have enough money to surround them with other players.
Role players, yeah.
Somewhere along the way, you probably know, the league sort of changed from a two-headed monster to a three-headed monster, and now you got to pay three guys, but that's only three players.
You need a lot more.
You still got to put two more on the floor, and you got to bring
a bench.
At least two or three or four more off of the bench. There's not enough money to surround them with people. Okay. So we gave a whole bunch of money to Kobe, which sort of handcuffed us to bring anybody else in, but we were getting assets. Okay. And so we went to the bottom. Now, when you get those assets, you either develop them and keep them, develop them or trade them, trade the choices before you even draft them, or draft them and then trade them. But you have possibilities. If you're a great team, you got a team where free agents want to come and play for you to win. If you're in the middle, you're not good enough to attract free agents. You're not shitty enough to draft. You get stuck in the middle and you can't get out of it. Once again, Miami is that one team that has never really gone to the bottom. Part of it is Riley's culture that he's created. That, I can play there. I want to play there. You know, like it would have been great to play with. I think to play with Dwayne Wade, Alonzo. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, and to be coached by Pat and Spoelstra and those guys. Plus, they got Miami going for you. A lot of guys want to go down.
Selling point.
Yeah. Okay, so I think Kobe saw the handwriting on the floor, on the wall, okay, and he's probably the last great Hall of Fame player, superstar player that's played for one team.
I hope Steph is. But
okay,
Kobe. He's
could
the
be.
last one.
Steph could be. But look at it. So you got Magic Johnson. Kareem played for Milwaukee, but predominantly he's looked at as a Laker. Okay, worthy, one team. I mean, there's only a few guys. Yeah. Okay.
Special.
And now those days are really have come and gone.
It won't happen again.
And so, he threatened to leave. Okay, he was going to go to Chicago. I even got a call from Mitch Kupchak. And he said, you gotta call Kobe. And I said, what do you mean I gotta call? You gotta call. I said, why don't you call him? You're the general manager. He goes, you're the only one he'll talk to. Okay. And Jerry West had already left. Okay. But Jerry spoke to Kobe and talked him out of leaving.
Interesting.
There was even some discussion about going to the Clippers.
And I heard they were going to build up a facility out by his place in Orange County.
Yeah.
And move the whole team to get him.
Jerry said, you cannot go you can't do that. Okay.
Wow.
And Jerry and eventually did it. Okay. So he became loyal to the brand. Then, of course, there was his brand.
Yep.
Now, you may or may not know this. Okay. We were one of the worst teams in the league. We could not win.
We knew it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That part you knew. Now, what you might not have known was at the time, the most valuable team in the NBA was the New York Knicks. Okay. Also because they owned MSG.
Okay.
They owned Madison Square Garden. Okay. But the Lakers were the most profitable. Think about it.
Yeah.
We weren't going to make the playoffs, and we were still the number one most profitable team in the league. Okay. So in terms of Laker management, Laker ownership, we're going to ride this kid out. In terms of him, he's part of the Laker brand. He's created his own brand with his shoes and the drink and all the other things that he's doing. And he's going to score as many points as he can. Okay. And he knew that he couldn't win a championship. And when that pressure was off of him, nothing made Kobe happier than the actual winning of a championship. But I don't think he was ever happier playing the game than the last few years of his career.
Interesting.
Okay. Where he was having fun, you know what I mean? And he could do whatever he wanted. I mean, Byron got screwed, Byron Scott. Okay. Because his deal was, listen, man, because you can't go back in time, like I said. So if you're a coach and the losses are piling up, guess what? Yeah. That goes on your record in the books. Somebody ever wants to look up your coaching record, there's no asterisk. Well, we were doing this because you know what I mean. No, you lost. Yeah. Okay, and so Byron, we need you to take the hit. Okay, and then he's going to retire at the end of this contract, and then you're going to get the team, and with all these assets, okay, that we're going to, play off of that and climb back to the top, and you're going to be the guy. And then what happened was, and God bless Luke, okay, so this is not a shot at Luke, this is about Byron, but Luke's at Golden State, and Steve Kerr gets this, the cerebral spinal fluid problem. Luke is coaching, and he's coaching a great team. He does a great job, and now he can become a head coach and say, "Hey, let's give it to Luke." Wow! All right, and so Byron got screwed. Okay, and he might not say it, but I'm saying it for him.
I love it.
Okay,
I love it.
And as a result, Byron to this day has an excellent relationship with the Lakers. Okay. But, Jimmy was behind the scenes and Mitch was behind the scenes. And I think, God bless Mitch. My personal opinion about Mitch and Jimmy is they took too much criticism when things didn't go right, and they never got enough credit when things did, because things did go right for them. We won some championships with those two guys running it, with Powell and, okay. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes on back there, you know what I mean? And on the face of it, a lot of luck, you got to be lucky, and sometimes the luck is, your luck is another team's bad luck.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Look at the Lakers right now, they were playing great, and now all of a sudden, boom.
Both guys down.
Both guys. And significant time lost.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, I want to touch on just Kobe's mental last thing, tearing his Achilles, and he tore it. And leading up to it, he was playing an insane amount of minutes. Last 5 games leading up to it, he's playing nearly 46 minutes. I know you're over there probably biting your fingernails while it's going on. He tears it. Did he tell you just tape it up?
Yeah.
Talk to us about that time where he tears it, goes off the court.
That story? Yeah.
I heard it. I didn't know if it was an urban legend or not.
No,
he goes out there and shoots his free throws.
No, it is even a little bit more complex than that. So you, as an athletic trainer, somebody that does like the kinds of things that we do, if you see the injury, if you see it, you pretty much have a clue anyway. And so I saw it. And the way he kind of grabbed it and that kind of thing, I was
Give
like,
away.
shit, and his age, And so I'm walking out there, trotting out there, and I pretty much think that he tore his Achilles. And so I get out there and I go, what's going on? He goes, and he said the exact same thing that they all say. I thought somebody kicked me in the back of my leg, and I turned around, there was nobody there. If you ever hear anybody say that, 100%, they just ruptured their Achilles tendon. So I said to him, well, it sounds like it's an Achilles tendon. I didn't say rupture, because there's could be different degrees. But I said, it sounds like it's an Achilles tendon. He goes, yeah. He goes, I think it is. He goes, I reached back there and tried to pull it down.
Oh, because it went up.
Well, no, it doesn't work that way. It might feel that way, but that's not how, he said, I've never heard that before, and I've had other players. I've even had players that have torn both of them. Like you tore your right one. Once they fix that one, you're probably never going to tear that again. That's going to be something better than what you were born with. Okay, you end up tearing the other one. I've never heard that before. I'm like it doesn't roll up.
No.
Okay. So my exact words to him, I go, doesn't work that way. He goes, yeah, I didn't think so. He says, and then he said to me, he goes, yeah, I tried to walk on my heel to see if I could run on my heel and finish the game. We were trying to get in the playoffs, right? Dude, you just ruptured your Achilles, you know what I mean? I go, it doesn't work that way either. He goes, no, I know, I couldn't do it. So he's trying to run on his heel, you know what I mean? So then that's when he says to me, well, can we just go back in the locker room? You tape it up and I can finish the game.
You wanted to finish the game.
I said, it doesn't work like that either. I said, but here's how it works. You were fouled. It's 2 free throws coming. You already tore your Achilles. It's like, you're not going to tear it shooting a free throw. You'll make it worse. You're not going to tear the other one shooting a free throw. So I'll let you shoot the free throws if you want to shoot the free throws. Because if you don't shoot them, they're going to pick the worst, I said, and then after you shoot the free throws, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. This is how you handle this. I know from 30 plus years. Soon as you shoot the second free throw, make or miss, we're going to foul. Dead ball. Well, that's when we'll get you out of the game. I'm telling you, I'm going to tell the official, and I'm going to tell Mark, okay? Jackson was coaching Golden State. So I got the official, I got Mark. I said, listen, I think he ruptured his Achilles tendon. I'm going to let him shoot the free throws. Make or miss, we're going to foul somebody, and so we get him out of the game. So everybody knows what's happening, okay? So there's cooperation with the other team, the officials, right? Okay. What I didn't count on, now all this takes place on the other end of the floor, the Warriors end of the floor.
Bench,
and so now we went from a 20-second timeout to a full timeout, okay? So Byron's back there talking to the rest of the team, okay? And I got to go back there and tell him what we're going to do, okay? Kobe walks all the way down to the other end because we're right in front of the free throw line. He just has to stand there and wait there for us, right? He decides to walk all the way back to our bench. For what reason? Okay. On his own power with a ruptured Achilles. Okay. And then the timeout's over, and now he walks all the way back. Okay, which he didn't have, to do if he didn't go there in the first place. And so he shoots the 2 free throws. And now I go back out there and meet him. He's walking towards me. And so now we got to go all the way back to the locker room. And so I say to him, I can get you a chair. And he looks down at me and he says, fuck Paul Pierce. That's for you. Okay. Because you remember in 2008,
He had the boo-boo.
okay, he got the boo-boo and he took him off on a wheelchair.
And he came back.
And then he came back and kicked our ass.
Uh-huh.
All right. Okay. Think of the mentality.
Sicko.
Okay.
Sicko.
You just rupture your Achilles and you're sending a message to Paul. Fuck Paul. Who cares about Paul Pierce at this point? Right.
Crazy.
So
Oh,
now we get back to the locker room and he's been pretty reserved. And then everybody starts ducking because he's picking up Gatorade bottles and he's flinging them all over the place. There's modalities picking shit up off of, he's throwing things everywhere and we're dodging stuff. And then, he finally calms down. Okay. And now we, what are the next steps? And there's some different philosophies about this. But his process of coming back, he wanted it to start the next morning. So he wanted to go home and he wanted to go into surgery first thing in the morning the next day. He didn't want to think about it, give it a chance to calm down. He wanted it done the very next day. So by the time we left the arena, we were already scheduled for surgery the next day with Dr. Elatrash. Okay. So he wasn't there. Okay. We had to call him at home and say, hey, listen, you got an OR available tomorrow? Now, the other part of this story is, and this is when the Black Mamba turned into Kobe Bryant. So he is pissed. Okay. And now somebody comes in, NBA, our security guy, I think it was Robert Lara, came in and say, Vanessa and the girls are in the hallway. So have you ever been back to our training room back there? I had a doorway.
The back door.
Yeah. Back door that came into my office. And then from the office, you could go into the, you know what I mean? So people didn't have to parade. So I said, okay, close the training room door and bring the girls into my office. And then when he's ready, I'll bring, okay. And so they did that. They put Vanessa and the girls in there. And then I said, okay, Vanessa and the girls are in my office. When you're ready, okay, I'll bring them in. Okay. And then all of a sudden, he flipped the switch and the Black Mamba went into wherever Black Mambas go. Okay. Those, I don't know where those snakes go in they could go in a hole in the ground or something. He went in there and he turned into Kobe and the girls came in and he didn't want them to see how upset he was. And he turned into the most wonderful, loving husband and father.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Which
only him.
And then once again, I was there. I mean, why me? Why did God choose me? For whatever reason, I was a part of all this. I don't know what else to say other than I hope I was worthy of it.
Yeah. You definitely
I don't know.
Definitely
it's not for me to.
His final game, he fights back to the Achilles, gets himself back on the court, and he goes out the only way Kobe can go out. What do you remember about that day and up to his speech where he dropped the mic and it was over?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he didn't say anything before the game that he was going to do this, and he didn't start out well, if you remember.
He was struggling.
Yeah. And so I think that it kind of took a life of its own, and I want to say Spike was there, and Spike Lee. And I remember when he was towards the end when he was looked like he was going to go for 60. Okay. And he came over and I said, going out like this is almost better than being an MVP. Okay. And he looked at me and he said, "You got it." Okay. And then I realized what he was trying to do, that it wasn't just going to be Kobe's last game. It was going to be, do you remember Kobe's last game? It wasn't just going to be, it was the last game he played. It was going to be, they're going to be talking about my last game. Not just that was the last game. I put up, as Bob McAdoo would say, I put up numbers.
And that happens, and that simultaneously ends your journey as well, correct?
Yeah, we went out together, which was, it wasn't planned, but it just sort of happened that way.
Like it was meant to be.
But once, because we knew he was definitely going to retire, and then once he realized that I was, then it could become sort of a thing for us, and they had a Gary Vitti night, but it wasn't that night because that was Kobe's last game, but it was against the Boston Celtics. Okay. Where they gave me my retired jersey with, like, instead of a number on it, there was, like, the cross, like a medical cross, and they gave me a ball, and they did the whole half court thing. So it was really quite touching, and he was besides my family, Kobe was especially wonderful to me on my night. This is he kept saying, this is your night.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that they're doing, maybe he even had something to do with it. Like, hey, you need to do something for this guy. I don't know.
I love it.
But yeah, it wasn't all fun and games with him.
No, not at all.
I mean, like if you saw the wrath and if you were on the other end of that.
And he's hard-headed too, or he was hard-headed as hell.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Like I was on the other end of that. Okay. You were like, if I didn't know you loved me, right. You know what I mean? Like, I would think you hated me, but then, it was just, he got better. Well, see, and that's what I mean. At the end,
you got to see him go from a kid to a man, to 20 a father. Years. Like, you saw him grow up, and you said, I don't know verbatim, but you got to see him turn from a boy to a man. Yeah.
Our two things at the end were, I saw you grow up and you saw me grow old. Okay. And then the part B to that was that we believe that I'm the only person on the face of the earth that saw every single game. And practice, for that matter,
that Kobe played in,
that he participated in.
Special. Looking back to close this out, 32 years. What comes to mind when I say 32 years, championships, the stories, the good, the bad, just the journey overall that you're here to tell it? What comes to mind?
I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but the stars lined up for me in many, many ways. And, what I learned, many, like, the book isn't about me. The book is about the lessons that I learned from the great champions that I work with. So whoever I am today, whatever I know, okay, is because of that 32-year journey, okay, and the great champions that I work with and that I learn from. And this is not going to come out right, but I don't know how else to say it, okay? The two most influential men in my life were Jerry West and Pat Riley, okay? And that includes my father. And that doesn't mean my father was a bad father. I'm not saying that. He wasn't a deadbeat dad or anything like that. He was, but I learned so much from those guys. Okay. And the other great guys, I learned things from Kareem, how he handled adversity, you know, how the true test of someone's character is when things are going bad. Knowing everything's going your way. Okay. And then what do you do about that when those things go bad? About taking responsibility, looking in the mirror, okay? Taking responsibility of your role. It's like I said, when we fell apart, the Kobe Shaq thing, okay? Yeah, we could blame it on them. What about everybody taking some responsibility? Everybody participated in that schism. Okay? You know, I don't hear anybody else taking responsibility.
Right.
You know, I was part of it. If I did the right thing, I still don't know that I could have saved the day, but collectively we might have been able to. You know, and so that whole thing, the championships after the '85 championship, which was my first. Okay, I mean, each one was special. But when I look back, it wasn't other than the '85 one, it wasn't the championships. It was everything in between.
The journey.
And the people that I did it with, you know, or they did it with me, you know, they allowed me into that space. Okay. Because I never scored a point, I never got a rebound, never got an assist. But I was there and I was part of it. Okay. So we had the Laker reunion in Maui a few years ago, and if you were on one of the Showtime, so not the Phil Jackson era, but the Pat Riley era, okay, if you were on a player, a coach, which there was only Bill Burka and Dave Walt and Coach Riley, or me, if you were one of those people, because that really whittles it down, then you were invited to 1 week in Maui with the whole group with the Laker reunion. And we went and had a shoot around and practice, and we dressed up like Lakers and like the old days, and these guys are limping around, and you know, and it was 3 square meals a day, and it was like real food. I mean, it was like steak and lobster, open bar. I mean, millions. They spent
Lakers.
A lot of money on this.
Lakers.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. And they allowed me to be a part of it. It wasn't just the players and the coaches. It was the players, the coaches, and me. And now, I don't know if you know, we're doing it again in September in the Bahamas.
I love it.
And so I'm a part of that. Okay. And so I'll try to stop talking here because it's not completely clear, but when you asked me that question, because I never really thought about it, it was being part of the family, the camaraderie. That's what I miss. I don't miss the games. You know, I don't miss, a lot of people miss the competition, the games. That's extremely stressful, that stuff. Okay.
Hanging around.
Okay. Yeah. And we, you know, and like I said I tell you what makes you want to retire? Losing. Okay. Winning's fun. Everybody wants to do that. It's the losing.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you hear players say, I just want to win one and then I can retire, that's bullshit. Because when you win one,
you want more.
You got it. Yeah. Now you got the bug. Okay. But when you're losing year in and year out, that wears you down.
Yeah.
Okay. Because losing is miserable. Okay. And we hadn't won it. We hadn't made the playoffs in the last 4 years of my career, and it was going to be another 4. So it was going to be an 8-year drought.
Yeah.
And I could get out with my pension and be still part of the team as a consultant. And, you know, so was the journey, the camaraderie, the family. To this day, especially the 85 team, 85 and 87. 85 because we beat the Celtics. 87, we beat the Celtics. 86, we lost. Okay, but we didn't lose to them. We lost to the Rockets. Okay, because we would have beat your ass.
It'll never die.
Yeah.
Well, G, I want to just thank you first and foremost and let you know you were definitely worthy and chosen for the right reasons. thank you for sharing your story. I mean, I felt like a little kid hearing stories about the teams I grew up loving, and then guys I played against and played with, and again, like you said, you were there for the entire time, man. So thank you for your time. I know you guys are going to enjoy this episode, 2-part marathon, but it's going to be worth it, man. Gary Vitti, thank you for your time. G.
Thanks for having me, man.
Love you, man. Thank you.
My regret is I didn't have you long enough.
Yeah, man. Once Mike Brown came out, I knew it was my time to go. Anyways, that's a wrap. Unplugged. We'll see you guys next week.